Hey there, Brian here again. Hope you had a good break. Let's get back to our presentation and finish it, shall we? All righty, intermission is done. So let's just review a little bit. We talked about ecosystem services just a little bit. Maybe I should mention kind of an overview of what they are, what they do. So ecosystem services are things that we get from the ecosystem, okay? Things that the environment provides for us. We talked a little bit about what happened outside of Rio in and around or before and after the Olympics, the 2016 Olympics. There are times when we don't take care of our environment, and that was one example. And I'm going to show you an example next of when we do take care of the environment and the reason why. Okay, so let's jump right in. And the example that we're going to be talking about today is New York City. Now, New York City is the largest city in the United States. More people live in New York City than in any other city, more than Los Angeles, more than Chicago. It's the largest city in the United States. 8 million people there drink water and use water every single day. And not one drop of that water is filtered. Not one drop of that water is treated in any way except adding chlorine. New York City uses 1.3 billion gallons of water every single day. And do you know where it all comes from? Ecosystem services. It's all filtered by the environment. Okay, you'll see on your screen here, there are two large green watersheds. In the top left, the Catskill, Delaware watershed, and down on the bottom right, the Croton watershed. Now, these are areas that are mostly forested. They're not all forested, but they're mostly forested. 75%, 3/4 of that area is forest. Okay, there are people that live and work there. There's 200,000 people that own property there. There are towns there. There are villages there. There are stores there. There are houses there. Okay, there's probably farms there. So it's not pure forest. There are people that live and work there too. But 75%, 3/4 of the land is forest. And do you know what forests provide for us? Forests provide clean air to breathe. Forests also provide clean water to drink. Okay, that water falls as rain, or up here in New York, sometimes snow. Okay, and as it percolates, as it goes into the ground, into the soil, it's cleaned. If it has anything bad in it, the soil takes it out, it cleans it, and then it flows into the river. And New York City realized this, and they had a decision not long ago. They said, we need to guarantee clean water for everyone that lives in New York. How are we going to do that? We have two options. We could build a conventional treatment plant. Okay, a lot of places they have treatment plants where they take in water that might not be too clean. They mix it with chemicals, they put it through filters, etc., and it comes out clean. New York City said we could do that. And they did a study and they found out if we chose that option, it would cost between $6 and $9 billion to build that plant. And then after it was built, it would cost $300 million every year to run it. You have to pay the workers, you have to buy the chemicals, you have to buy the filters, you have to fix the machines when they break down. So they said, if we want to do this artificially, if we want to do this by building a big water factory, it would cost between $6 to $9 billion to build and it would cost $300 million each and every year to keep it running. Or we can preserve the forest, which does it for free. And New York City decided on the latter, okay? So you can see here, this is that conventional treatment plant I was talking about, okay? The water comes in and it goes through filters, it's mixed with chemicals, it takes out all the bad stuff and only clean water is left. But guess what? Exactly the same thing is done right here. Exactly the same thing is done right here. And that's what New York City chose. Now, the forest provides this service for free, but it's not free to New York City because New York has to preserve that forest. It had to buy up that land because there were a lot of people that wanted to build houses on that land, or maybe build factories or build schools. Okay, they weren't just going to let that land sit there, and New York City can use it, but the people couldn't. So New York City had to buy that land. They had to pay to protect that land. And remember, there are 200,000 people that live and work there. Do you think those people poop? They do. Do you think they flush their toilets and use their sinks? They do. So New York City has to pay to make sure that that poop, that dirty water is cleaned before going back in the river. They have to make sure that those people have treatment systems so that they don't spoil the clean water that the forest is providing. And so I just want to be very clear, it is not this, the service is provided by the forest for free, but it still costs New York City money to preserve the land, to make sure nobody builds houses or factories on the land, and to make sure that the people that live on the land, that their waste is treated. It turns out that it costs New York City less to do that than if they were to build that plant. So even though it's not free, it's still much, much cheaper to preserve the environment, to take care of the environment, and to let the environment do the work, in this case, cleaning the water, than it is to try and do it with filters and chemicals in a plant like this. So the largest city in North America, New York City, it does not filter a single drop of water that its residents use. The only thing it does is add chlorine, because sometimes, remember those bacteria that are in there? Sometimes there are bacteria that can make us sick. So they want to put chlorine to kill those bacteria that can make us sick. But that's all that they do. They don't filter it. They don't treat it in any other way except adding a little bit of chlorine. Pretty impressive, if you ask me. The reason that this can happen is because when we're talking about nature in the environment, there's no such thing as garbage in the environment, in nature. Every waste product can be utilized, can be used by something else, okay? Here we have a picture of a horse that's munching on an apple in a field with some grass and an apple tree growing. And if you've ever been around horses, you know that they eat a lot of, oh, excuse me, they eat a lot of food and they make a lot of poop. And as that horse is walking around the field, it's pooping. That poop is fertilizer. That poop contains the nutrients that the grass needs to grow, the nutrients that the tree needs to grow, okay? The poop, the only garbage that that horse makes is poop. It's 100% degradable. It's exactly what the plants want. And the plants, they grow the grass that the horse eats. In this case, the tree is growing an apple that the horse is eating. Okay. When those leaves fall off in the wintertime, they'll turn into fertilizer as well. But the biggest thing here is the air. Animals like you and me, okay, most of those bacteria I was talking about before, what do we breathe in? We breathe in oxygen. What do we breathe out? we breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants do exactly the opposite. Plants take in CO2, carbon dioxide, and plants give off oxygen. They give off what we need to breathe, and we give off what they need to live. Okay? In a natural setting, there is no such thing as waste. There is no such thing as garbage. Everything is utilized. Garbage is a human concept, okay? Because garbage, humans, we make things, whether it's plastic or whatever. We make them, we use it a little bit, and then if it breaks or whatever, we say, ah, we're done, throw it away. There's no such thing as garbage in the environment. Every waste product, everything is reutilized. But there's a lot of people in the world, and we make a lot of garbage. So, sorry, this slide should have been up before the last one. This is one of those treatment plants that New York City pays for. This treatment plant is in that area, that watershed that they're preserving. The poop and the dirty water in here is not from New York City. The poop and the dirty water in here is from some of those 200,000 people that live in the watershed. But who pays for this treatment plant? Not those people. New York City pays, because New York City knows that if this dirty water were to be released into the river, New York City's water would be ruined. So this is part of the cost that they have, part of the cost that they have to provide in order to make sure that the water that the forest cleans for them stays clean. So remember, it's not free, but it's a lot cheaper than it would have been to go the other way around. So I'm sorry, this slide should have been here. We'll just do the old switcheroo here. Whoop. Okay. In fact, this system is so perfect that we have something that's called aquaponics. Aquaponics is a growing thing that some places are using around the world to grow food. And it's a mix of vegetables and fish. And they all live in the same area. They all live in the same factory that grows it. Maybe I shouldn't say factory, because they're not really manufacturing anything. They're just growing. So it's more like an indoor farm, really. So they grow the plants, and their roots are sitting in water. They don't have to fertilize that water because the fish do that for them. The roots are sitting down in water. The roots are sucking up the nutrients, because before that water hit the plants, the fish were living in it. And what were the fish doing? They were swimming around, they were breathing, they were eating, and they were pooping. And their poop is just what the plants need to grow. So it's a cycle. The water just circulates. Okay, it goes to the fish poop, the water goes to the plants suck up that nutrients, clean the poop, they use that to grow, in this case, a juicy tomato, okay? And then that water goes back to the fish. It goes back to the fish because it's nice and clean, okay? Fish need clean water to live in. So the plants are acting as filters for the fish, okay? You can see there's also some microbes and worms that grow in there, okay? There's those tiny little bacteria, okay? They're eating a lot of the poop as well. And it's just a cycle. And then once the fish grow to a certain size, they take the fish out and they sell them as food. Those juicy tomatoes, once they grow on there, they take that out and they sell it as food. They put new baby fish in. And after you pick the tomato, the plant's still alive and it can just keep growing. So the aquaponics cycle utilizes all, it's kind of an artificial ecosystem because it's inside, it's enclosed inside something that people made, but it utilizes ecosystem services to produce food. Okay, it relies on that. Because the earth that we live on is what's called a closed system. Things that are here on the earth stay here on the earth. Stuff that's here on earth does not leave the earth. It doesn't fly out into space. The only way something can leave the Earth and go into space is if humans put it on a rocket and blast it off. Okay? Things from outer space, they don't really come onto the Earth, except tiny little rocks sometimes come through. But otherwise, excuse me, the air that we're breathing, this air stays on Earth. It doesn't come from space. This water that we're drinking, this water stays on the Earth. It doesn't come from space. Okay? So everything that is on the Earth stays on the Earth. That's the definition of a closed system. Okay, we're not giving giving material away to other planets or to space, and we're not taking material in. The water that we have is all the water that we have. The air that we have is all the air that we have. So if we mess it up, if we pollute it, we're stuck with that polluted air or that polluted water. Once you pollute water, it's very hard to clean it. Okay. Well, I should say, once you pollute water with certain chemicals, artificial man-made chemicals, it's very hard to clean it. Once you pollute air, it takes some effort to clean it. But we're in a closed system. Things on Earth are constantly cycling. They're constantly going through. Okay. The air that we breathe. This oxygen was given off by plants not long ago, and now I'm breathing it. I'm breathing out carbon dioxide. Plants that are right outside this house are going to be taking that carbon dioxide in, and they're going to be giving off oxygen. Okay. Constant cycle. And sometimes here there are some areas. Now we're switching over from water to air. These are some areas where the carbon that we give off, where the ecosystem takes that and what we call sequesters it. So look down here, these are the redwood trees in California. Look how big they are. Here are people, and here are these giant trees. Beautiful, beautiful trees. They're storing carbon that was taken out of the atmosphere. Peat bogs, these are peat bogs. I think this one was in Northern Europe. Excuse me. But in northern latitudes, in areas where it's pretty cold on Earth, you have a lot of peat bogs. These areas are storing all that carbon from the atmosphere. The ocean is the largest carbon sink that we have. So while we're emitting carbon, while we're putting carbon out, the ocean sucks a lot of that up and stores it. Okay. Why am I talking about carbon? Why did I move from water to air and now carbon? Well, carbon is one area that humans were really kind of screwing up the planet. We're really using our atmosphere, the air, as a garbage dump. Now, that might seem kind of silly. You can't take garbage and just throw it in the air and it'll stay there. But the garbage that I'm talking about is CO2, carbon dioxide. We're emitting a lot of that, okay? You can just see here, this is a graph that shows between 1960 and about 2010, what has happened. We've emitted a lot of carbon. Look at that graph. It's just going, it's going up. It's going very high, okay? Here's a cartoon, kind of a funny cartoon where a man is living in a very polluted area and he has his own little private tree there that's providing him clean air. And what's he providing the tree? He's breathing out carbon dioxide that the tree needs to live, okay? Now, this is just kind of silly. It's not realistic. He would need to take that tree off his back and give it some water and give it some fertilizer to keep it alive. But again, this is just kind of a cartoon that shows what I'm talking about. Look at this huge industrial plant here that's belching out all this pollution. Ugh, horrible. Here's a cooling tower of a power plant that's belching out all this pollution. This poor girl here has trouble breathing and needs to have some medicine to help her. This is what people are doing. This is what we're doing to the environment, to the atmosphere. we're releasing a lot of pollution into the air. And if we do it for too long, it's going to come back and it's going to bite us. Okay, because you can't just keep doing this and have things be the same. Now, an important thing about this is that we're not doing it at the same level. Some countries, like my country, the United States, we're doing it more than your country, Brazil. We're emitting more carbon into the atmosphere than Brazil is. It's not an equal thing. If you look at Africa here, very few emissions coming from Africa. A lot are coming from North America. Less are coming from South America. A lot are coming from Europe, Russia, Australia. Asia, not so much, okay? Although that's changing. China is really growing in its emissions. We're not all emitting at the same rate, but that doesn't matter because we all share the same air. It's not a fair thing. It's not a fair thing. Here, this just shows what I was talking about. Remember that guy with the tree on his back here? This is photosynthesis, the wonderful thing that plants do, where they take in water, they take in carbon dioxide, and through the process of photosynthesis, sunlight lands on the chlorophyll, that's the green pigment in their leaves. They produce a simple sugar called glucose, that's what they need to live, and they give off their waste product is oxygen. That's what you and I need to breathe, to live. So just remember, this comes back to, in a natural setting, there's no such thing as garbage. There's no such thing as waste. Because everything that we give off is used by something else. The plants are giving off oxygen. We're breathing that. We're using that. We're giving off CO2. That's what the plant is using. Okay. One reason that, remember, Brazil is doing a heck of a lot better than us here in the US as far as carbon emissions is because you guys down there use biofuels, ethanol and biodiesel. Okay. That shortens that cycle significantly. When we burn up here in the United States, when we burn gasoline, we're burning fossil fuels. We're putting carbon back into the atmosphere that was last there millions of years ago. When you burn ethanol that was made from a sugarcane plant, you're putting carbon back in the air that was only there 1 or 2 years ago. We can get more into this in a future lesson, but I just have to really commend Brazil on its use of biofuels. You're doing a heck of a lot better than us here in the United States. Okay, we'll skip over that slide and we'll just go right to the end. So that does our presentation today. You've been great. Thank you for your attention. We're going to end it here. I'm going to end with a challenge that I want to give you. And I look very forward to seeing what you come up with. So today we talked a little bit about ecosystem services. We showed one problem. We showed one example of a way that we utilize those ecosystem services. And now I want you guys to think, I want you to think, what is something that's happening right where I am? Okay, whether that's Passo Fundo, whether it's somewhere else in Brazil, wherever you are. Identify a local environmental problem. And I want you to bring the issue to the attention of your own community. And you can do this however you want. You can write a musical parody that talks about it. You can draw a poster. You can make a comic drawing. Remember the guy with the tree on his back? That was a comic drawing. You can make a painting or do some recycled art. Take something that would be garbage normally and turn it into art. That's recycled art. Or I bet you come up with some ideas that I don't even have. You guys can come up with something that I didn't even think of. So go that route too. The choice is yours, whatever you want to do. Okay? All I'm asking is that you identify a local problem, something that impacts people right where you live, and I'd like you to bring that issue to their attention. How is up to you. Use your own creativity to figure it out. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Okay. So that does it for me. That does it for my end. Going to hand it back over to Eliane now. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to talking with you again soon, and I really look forward to what you come up with on those projects. Bye-bye.